and gentlemen, I'm Gary Davis, the Vice Chair of the South Central Chapter GA Committee. Jeff is in a different meeting. He sends his regrets for not being able to participate at this particular meeting. First plug is for the Oklahoma City conference coming up in May 13th. If you haven't registered, it's open now. And with that, what I'm going to do is introduce Kerry Trosser of Basco Services. He is the Chief Customer Service Representative. Many of you may already know him in that. And then we have his personnel, Tracy
Deutsch.
Deutsch. He's the technical expert to this. And so what we'd like to do, Kerry comes from a long line of FBOs from Kerrville to Denton, and now to his previous or current job with Basco Services. He's been with them for a while. And so I'd like to turn it over to Kerry, say a few words, and then introduce Tracy. And what we're going to do is discuss how the system, or why the system is being implemented, how it came about, what does it do, what does it not do, what's the time frame for implementation, and then what type of enforcement system is there if we don't do it, or if we're late in doing it, and then any other pieces of, how much time do we have for ordering the system, and how long does the install take. So with that, Kerry, I'll turn it over to you, and we'll begin.
All right, thank you, Gary. I'm Kerry Trosser with Basco Services, Customer Service Manager. Been with them for about 7 years now. And Gary asked if we could put on this presentation for the new secondary overfill systems for NFPA 407 and the Scully systems. So we're really fortunate today to have Tracy on this call, because he knows more about the Scully systems than anybody else that I know. And he is actually in charge of getting the Scully system set up company-wide for signature flight support. So he's got all of the specs and information on the Scully systems. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce Tracy and let him take over.
Hi, this is T. Deutsch at Basco. I do all the Scully systems for Basco Services. If you're filling a refueler to fill aircraft with avgas or jet fuel, you've got to have a Scully system. The Scully system is a secondary form of overfill shutdown. So if you pull your refueler up to a fuel farm, they got a jet sensor in there, you start filling your truck up, it shuts the belly valve off and stops you from overfilling it. The Scully system is a secondary form of shutdown electronically that shuts down the fuel flow if the on your truck and the SD15 system on your fuel farm, they're plugged in, and that cord energizes that sensor. And when it's shorter than your jet sensor. When fuel hits the sensor and your jet sensor on the truck does not shut the fuel flow off, the Scully system will kill the valve or pump. However your system is set up, we can shut it down so you don't overfill the truck. And every vehicle that you fill with avgas or jet fuel has to have this. So I would like to open up some questions coming this way so I can answer things.
I'm sure one of the questions is going to be what's the cost of the systems?
Okay. Do not quote me on this. Every system is different, wiring wise, but typically you're looking at $5 to 10 grand per skid that needs a Scully system. Trucks, the cost is probably $700 in parts, plus probably 2 hours of labor to install it on your trucks. So a typical site would be avgas and jet. You get two tanks together. So what we've come up with is, instead of having an ST15 controller in the avgas system and every ST15 controller on the jet, we put one in with a tank selector switch to save you about $4 or $5 grand. And then we've got to put the Scully system on the trucks. So it kind of depends on your layout, because typically when we put that tank selector switch in, it means that you can only fill one refueler at a time. So it would save you money if you could only fill one refueler at a time, probably about $4 or $5 grand.
So the systems run about, say, for a typical two product fuel farm, about $10,000 for the farm, and then a couple of $1,000 per truck. Is that about right for an average?
Well, the truck is probably $600-700 for parts, and then 2 hours labor, a couple $100.
So about 1,000.
The farm, yeah, the farm's a big thing. If your
Right.
tanks are separated where they're far apart, then we have to put in multiple SD15s. The SD15s run a couple grand a piece, and then you've got to have electrical installation, all that stuff. So it's very site specific.
So Tracy, who is obligated and how are they obligated to install this?
Hold on. Say that again. I'm sorry, my phone rang. Say it again.
Who is obligated and how are they obligated to install this?
Okay, so the way this came out is the NFPA 407 board. And then they were saying Part 139 airports, LaGuardia, New York, Boston, the big airports had to have it. Then it got down to a subcommittee of the FAA. The FAA said, no, anybody that is taking federal grant money for their airport is required to have this. So now it included everyone, because I'm not sure I've ever seen an airport that never got federal grant money. So they've got to have it. And it's got to be put in and installed by June 2nd of 2023.
Is there, so based on your install site, you said you're doing all of Signature. So how many companies can do this, or how are they going to complete, all the airports by then?
Okay, so I think probably average about 45% of the people have done it and had it done already. And we probably have 50-55% of the FBOs that have not had it done that need to have it done. We can get your airport taken care of as long as you order the stuff now, because there's going to be a point in time in probably April, May, that it's going to take 6 to 9 weeks to get parts, which extends you past the point where you could get fined. So, I mean, it's really tough because, a lot of small airports and FBO has been waiting for this for a while, and now they're looking at doing it. But if you don't order the stuff now, there's going to be a point where you might get an airport manager or marshal or somebody from the FAA comes in and says, you're done, you're closed. We don't know if they're actually going to close. They never really specified that, but the convenient authority is the FAA. They can pull certificates. You can't fuel on an airport. But on top of that, the local jurisdiction is the fire marshal or the airport manager. They can make you do whatever they want. You got to keep them on your good graces. So you got 3 different entities that can enforce this. Now, they really don't have enough people to enforce this, but if they come crawling at your airport, they can shut you down if you don't have it.
So what's a typical install time? Like Carrie described, 2-tank system and 1 truck of each.
Okay, so if we got avgas, jet fuel, and then 2 trucks, probably 1.5 days, maybe 2. It depends on the wiring on the fuel system. The biggest thing that we have to worry about is how your fuel system was set up and we can control for the shutdown. It could either be a control valve, but some farms don't have control valves. They just shut the pump down. Now, while we can regulate and shut the pump down, it slows down the stoppage of the fuel. It doesn't just shut it off. The control valve shuts it off. If we control the motor, it'll still keep pumping a little bit and you'll be over 95%. You know, in those is we like to tell people you need to get a control valve and put that in. But sometimes with these smaller airports, they can't afford to do it. So we control the motor to shut the pump down. So it's not always going to be a massive expenditure. It's not the best thing to shut down, but if that's all you got, we can do it, care of it.
So I have 2 airports down here. One is all set up in 3-phase and the other one is set up as a single phase. Does that matter?
Okay, so there are 2 versions of this. We get single phase and 3-phase. If you don't have single phase there, 110 volts, we can order the system in 3-phase. Most, let's say I did 100 of these. 98 of them have been 110 volt. We've got 110 volt power we can use to control the system. But there's a couple that might, so we need your voltage. What you got, and usually I always text or email me a couple of pictures. Because the other thing we need is, typically it's on an avgas truck. You get on top. But avgas manholes are smaller than the jet. So if they don't have offsets, we have to provide an offset manhole so we have enough room to answer in. So we just need a little information from every site. So if you're a site, you need it, you have to get a hold of Carrie, let him know if you got avgas trucks and take a picture of on top of your truck so we know if we have to replace your manhole with normal ones to offsets so we can put the sensor in so we get the Scully work.
So my one airport has a 300-gallon mobile tank. It sits on a trailer and it's just a small tank. It's got a battery and that's about it. So make the assumption that has a requirement also. Is that correct?
If it is getting fuel from the fuel farm and it's avgas or jet fuel, that trailer is going to have it too. As long as it's got a battery and power, we can do it.
Okay. So you talked about, good.
No, go ahead. I'm good.
So you talked about the enforcement being the FAA and the fire marshal and the airport manager, aviation director. So what fines other than just closing the fuel farm down, or have they alluded to in that respect?
So as far as fine, I have no clue. Nobody's ever said anything. So the FAA is the main convening authority. But what I've seen over the last year and a half is we get over those airport managers and fire marshals going, you have this, you got to put it in, or I'm going to close you down next month. And then I get involved. I send them the documentation that says, look, NFPA 407, June 2nd, 2023. It's not a fineable until then. What the fine is, I'm not sure. Nobody's ever alluded what it could be. I was just always told that the FAA can shut you down. They can pull your certificate to sell fuel at the airport. What fine is, I don't know. I have no clue. I've asked the question. Nobody's ever answered it. So I will not say about that. But I will tell you that the FAA can shut you down from selling fuel. The fire marshal and the airport manager can shut you down, period. That's their thing. Got to be on good graces with them. If they come in and they're mad, you got to have this, fine. Call us. We'll send the documentation to them and say, listen, it's not due until June 2nd. It's on order. We'll get it put in. And normally that works. In some small things, nope, you got to be installed and done by March 1st. Fine. We'll do whatever we can to accommodate that and make it work. But the big thing I want to stress is right now, if you call me to get the equipment and get it installed and you say go, it's at least 3 to 4 weeks before the equipment ships. So I need some time to get it scheduled to get it installed because everybody waited till the last minute. I don't guarantee everything. And I did talk to one official at the UAA, and they said, look, if they got the stuff on order and it's past the date, they might give them a pass. But do not rely on that, because I don't want you to say that I said that and then they get fined and then you get mad at me. I'm just saying a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, just about everybody waited until this year to get it done. And if you don't get fined, it's not on us. We're trying to get everybody to be active and get this taken care of, because this year is it. Or they're going to come after you. Whether it's June 2nd when it's due, because there's so many airports, they don't have enough people to check it. So you might ride the wave and see if you get away with it, but that's up to you.
Okay. So is there in your conversations with the FAA and that, is there a waiver that you can apply for?
Okay, so the one thing I learned about you've got to have your, God, what do they call it? Your plan for leaks and cleanup and all that stuff, your SWIP plan. If you're not using the current version of NFPA, let's say you're using in your plan that you've submitted to the FAA in the airport, you're using 2017. You don't have to have it yet, but they're going to make you change your plan. That'll cost you money, and you're going to have to get it after that. You're going to have to talk to the FAA with your leak plan and how you manage that. You're going to have to talk to them and find out if you're required to have it. I'm not telling you every airport has it. I have airports in Alaska. They don't have to have it yet, but next year they're going to have to. But right now, the deadline is June 2nd, 2020. So if you don't know, you need to get a hold of the environmental guys that you use for your airport and have them find out state. Because you could be open up to fines. And I cannot talk about that. I have no clue. I can just tell you what the deadline is. And if you don't know, find out. Educate yourself on that, because I don't know if it's substantial or if it's small. And a lot of these smaller FBOs can't afford that. So it's a good idea to get in front of the ball. Even if you don't use us, use somebody, get it put in, because anything that says aviation is 10 times the price than everything else. You know, I mean, they just use aviation as a lifeline to kill us on pricing. So we want to make sure everybody is educated and understands and is informed and gets everything done so they don't get fined.
So if you just have a self-serve, they
No
pump it from the
required.
tank to the airplane.
Nope. It's only when you're filling a refueler. If you've got nothing but self-serves, like a jet and a avgas, you don't have to have it.
That might drive some people just to get rid of their refuelers then. You know, for smaller
Well,
airports.
Right, but some smaller airports might want to keep it, because the only way they can drive business into it is have the ability. And it's not a substantial cost over a year, as long as you plan for it. But
Yeah.
if you take that out of the picture completely, you might not be able to bring in more business. That's a thing for the airport to do, you know. I just know what other airports have told me. Well, we're going to get rid of it. We're just going to do self-serve. Other airports are like, nope, we're not doing that, because we're trying to entice people to come in, you know, Boeing or whoever. It depends on your situation. Situation. Smaller airports, maybe that's not a good idea. Let's go self-serve. Other airports try to get bigger. They're trying to bring in more customers or FBOs. So the fuel farm is keeping jet and avgas in refuelers. You know, it just depends on the situation.
Interesting. That's
I've
some of the
heard it both
questions.
ways.
Hey, so do we have any other questions out there in reference to the system? Terry and Carrie?
Hey guys, it's Stephen Berto from the Minden Airport in Louisiana. First off, thank y'all for doing this. It's still a lot of questions swirling around about it here and everywhere else in the country. I saved all my questions for last, just to see what else was answered initially, but you already got to the one about the self-serve tanks. However, our self-serve tanks we use as a fuel farm to refuel our mobile refuelers, so that kind of screws us on that. Got the deadline of June 2nd. One question I've seen, as far as from a general aviation standpoint, Louisiana Fire Marshal has not adopted the current version of NFPA. Actually, we're on NFPA 407 from 2012 currently. So could you possibly elaborate on how that could affect whether you do or don't have to have it, or if it basically just kind of kicks the can down the road until they do decide to adopt a current version, or how does that work?
I think you're going to be kicking the can down the road for a little bit. You get a hold of Marshall that he's not going to enforce the June 2nd deal here. I know if you haven't adopted certain versions of NFPA 407, you can get a waiver, but you have to make sure you get a waiver, or you're just a guy not doing what you're supposed to. So And I've never got a clear answer on how that works, because in Alaska, one of the sites, they're like, oh no, we're using 407 from 2012. Why? Why can you get away with that and nobody else can?
Well, that's
And
Alaska.
nobody's ever given me an answer. They're like, well, until they submit their new SWIFT plan and all this stuff. And I was like, that doesn't seem right to me. But I got no say in the game. I was just told that some people can get worse. So what you can do, reach out to your fire marshal, show them the code, show them what you're basing your information on, and see if he requires you to do it. You got to do your due diligence. I can't tell you what you can or cannot do. You've got to do your due diligence. And I don't know what plan you're working off of, what NFPA you're working off of, or if they're going to make you adopt a new one. That's up to you guys.
Yeah.
And in what I was trying to say to him before, I have no clue what the fines could be. They could be substantial or they could be small. I was told by one FAA official that they could shut you down from selling fuel, which is very substantial. But I don't know. I don't know exactly what they're going to do. They haven't alluded to that fact. I'm hoping to find out soon. I've got some questions that I submitted to the NFPA 407 board, but I haven't got answers yet. So I will not comment on that because I just don't know how to give you erroneous information.
Yeah. So, but one thing, that's Alaska. Alaska gets away with a lot of things with the aeronautical things that the rest of us don't.
Hey,
do.
be careful.
No, I'm just saying they have their own region, so it's frowned upon to take off and land on highways here and pull into a gas station and fuel up. But up there you can do that kind of thing.
You watch big TV shows.
I'll try to spend less time on YouTube. I have actually talked to a representative from the Louisiana Fire Marshal's office, and that's how I learned that they haven't adopted anything above 2012 as far as 407 goes. And my, I'll say, unofficial advice that I received from them was that we're not going to adopt it yet. So, there may be that this change was added as kind of a partial rewrite or revision for NFPA, and that it's possible even that whenever we do a complete rewrite in whatever it is, every 5 years or 7 years or whatever, that they could take this back out. They also said that the fire marshal, by the way, is my AIJ or AHJ. So because me as an airport manager, we own and operate the fuel business, the FBO as well. So we don't have an airport authority that we have that has authority over us. So and the local fire department has no dog in this fight. So
so for you, it'd be the FAA.
Right. So then my question on that, you're talking about pulling certificates and that kind of stuff. That sounds more like a commercial, like a Part 139 thing that they could pull
that was actually how it started. It was a Part 139 thing.
Right.
And when they got down to their subcommittee from NFPA 407, they said, no, not just 139, anybody that is taking federal grant. So if your airport is taking a federal grant, then you're required to have it.
Right.
The FAA killed that for everybody. It could have been, 89 airports. Now it's 450.
Yeah.
Because of that. And I can't speak to that. I've been told that. That's why everybody else has to do it.
Yeah,
if you haven't adopted the newer version in your SWIFT plan, I think to be compliant, you would have to get the fire marshal in your area to draft a letter saying that. And then if the AA or the FAA comes knocking, you send it to them. And why other people, as opposed to these people and these people, adopt the new version or the old version, and why they get away with it, I don't. It's weird to me. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I always went off the current regulation, but found out because of this stuff. Well, their SWIFT plan doesn't, they're using 2017, which doesn't require the sculling. Okay, what does that mean? Well, they don't have to have it. Then why do these guys have to have it?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. I'm just here to install it and do it. And I'll tell you, and I can give you a phone number to a couple people in the NFPA that you can get the proper information. I'm secondhand, so don't take whatever I say as gospel. I will give Carrie the information, who they can talk to make sure they understand exactly what the fine is or what you have to do to comply. I am not the convenient authority. I'm just an installer, but I've kind of come across this stuff, so I'm educated guys with what I know. I'm totally not the guy. I'm just telling you what I know and what I've been told. And one of the guys was Signature. We're doing the upgrades at all the Signature locations in the country. And I deal with Brian Coyle. He's the Q guy. He makes sure the fuel farms, everything is up to date and what they need to do to be compliant. And he is now on the 407 board. What happened went down, it was really messy. And a lot of people got Fuel, Phillips 66, Signature, all these fuel providers. They try to get it ratified out and say new fuel farms should have this, but old fuel farms should be, grandfathered in. Didn't happen. That board got fired. And this last year, a whole new board got put in. They were trying to ratify it out because it was, everybody on that board was like Fuel, Signature, Phillips, whatever. But because of the bylaws, they couldn't get it ratified out in time. It's going to be another year or two before they can vote on it. So it doesn't help, buddy. But I think you brought up a good point, to find out what's real and what's not. And I will call Brian and find out who everybody can call to make sure they need it and what the fine is and what you're responsible for. And I'll send it to Carrie. Carrie will send it to Gary, and Gary to everybody that's on this Zoom call. I'm not an expert, but I will find out the information and give it to you guys so everybody is informed. That's all I can do is help you get informed.
Yeah.
You cannot FAA show up and say, Tracy at Basco said you can't this. I'm not going to be that guy. I know. I can install it, put it in, but I will get you guys information on who to do to make sure you're fully informed on what you have to do and what form of NFPA you've adopted and if you've got to have this. Because I have seen people get worse. Here in Texas, nobody gets waivers. But in Arizona, there's 8 companies that I've dealt with. They got waivers. They don't have to have it. I don't understand the regulation that allows it, but everybody in Texas to have it. It seems kind of political, but I will carry the information to spread to you guys so you guys can figure out what you have to do. But if you have to have it, it's June 2nd of 2023. And if you've got to have it, you need to order it now because it's going to be, right now it's 3 to 4 weeks. In probably a month, it's probably going to be 8 to 12 weeks to get equipment. So we're trying to tell people that if you've got to have it, you've got to do something now, because chances are the FAA or the convenient authority in your area is not going to come around right at June 3rd and say you're down. But I cannot say that it won't happen because an FBA is a big company with a lot of people. I'm not going to be responsible for that. So I have it. I'll get you the information on who to talk to. and figure it out if you gotta have it. If you gotta have it, you order it quick because Scully is the biggest in this. And I've been dealing with the ownership family on this stuff for SIG because I have 49 locations to get upgraded by June 2nd. And that's a lot of equipment. That's 103 ST15s and 340 trucks. And that's a lot for them. That's just signature. Everybody on this phone call is on this. So if you're going to get it, you better order it soon. Even if you don't order it from us, I don't care. Order it from somebody because somebody might be able to walk onto the airfield and shut you down. And why they're doing this, I'm not quite sure, because this was never a systemic problem where you overfilled your refuelers. But this is the world we live in. So I'm giving you everything I got, but I'm not telling you what you can and can't do.
That's the part of the problem, I think, is that nobody's really telling us what we can and can't do because nobody really knows. It's like you're saying, it's different in Arizona and Texas and Alaska and Louisiana, and I think a lot of it comes back to because they revert back to whoever your AHJ is, your authority having jurisdiction, and so that's different everywhere at every airport. You know, some airports it might be the fire marshal, some it's the airport authority, some it's the airport manager, some
Well,
who knows.
it got this from several airports. It was either the fire marshal, the airport manager, or somebody from the FAA. These are the only three that have ever done this, but they get overzealous. They're like, we're going to shut you down now. Oh, you guys got to get out here and put this in. Why? Well, he's going to shut us down. Could you give me his number? And I call and talk to him. I'm like, look, dude, it's not due till June 2nd. You're being a little extra.
Yeah.
And I can usually talk them down. There's 2 instances where I could not. And they're like, nope, it's got to be done. My word is law. I'm God. And that's what I got. And the problem with the airline industry is at every airport, there are too many convening authorities and you get too many bored people. Oh, this is a rule? Hell yeah, I'm going to enforce this. I got nothing to do. I haven't done shit for 6 weeks. And then they tell people they're going to shut them down for no reason. It's not enforceable until June 2nd. So if anybody on this call, somebody says they're going to shut them down, have them call me. Let me talk to them. I don't even care if I see stuff and I put it in. Let me talk to them. Because chances are you're not the only FBO on the airfield. And it's got a little old for me. I've had this conversation about 27 times. Why are you enforcing something that's not legal until June 2nd? Well, I don't know. You know, they don't give me a reason. They just wanted to be enforcing something.
Yeah.
And I said, it's not enforceable. Here it is in the book. NFPA 47. That's where you got it from? Yes. Cool. What does that date say? So why are you going to company down to sell fuel and do stuff? Well, it's a law. June 2nd of 2000. You know, I've gone through this so many times. So anybody, if you've got a problem with your airport, call me, let me know, let me talk to them, and then you can make your own decision after that fact. But they shouldn't be pressuring you right now for it.
Well, that's I'll stop there. I'm not gonna take up the whole rest of the time, but thank y'all again for doing this.
I thought you were the only people on the phone call.
Somebody else speak up. Come on.
Is there anybody else out there? There's Gary and you.
Yeah, Carrie's still over there. But
Oh, yeah, Gary's always around.
so we have about 15
He's
minutes
like-
left. Do we have any other questions out there from the audience?
Come on, somebody's got to have something. Do they not like you?
let's see, one in the chat here. Let's see. Says NFL 12 407 12 version question. They were wondering about people that was under the using the NFPA 2012 version also on that compliance piece. So it sounds
That's
like
up
the
to you
FAA,
and
so
your environmental company. That's up to you and your environmental company, how you set it up with the state. Different states, different things. They come up with a plan for leaks and stuff like that. And then in that plan, you adopt, whatever version when you put that plan together. That's why I said it was really weird that I found out that some people were still on 2012. Why? Nobody gave me an answer. But until they change their plan at that airport to the new one, they don't have to have it. So you've got to do your due diligence and find out what you're required to have, what plan of NFPA 407 do you have.
And if I understood that correctly, I think if you're a commercial airport, you pretty much don't have a choice because Part 139, I think, adopts the current version of whatever NFPA is. And so then you're, no matter what
Right, but
your ACM or your AEP or any of that stuff says, you have to go to the current version. Whereas like with us, again, it's the different AHJ that fire marshals ours, and they haven't adopted one for a decade. So.
Right, and that's the thing. The big airports, yeah, y'all got to comply,
Yeah.
period. But the smaller airports, you're probably taking federal funding. So that's where the FAA got involved and said, everybody that's taking our money has to do this. So you could be a tiny airport in Topeka, Kansas, and you've got to have it done. But it depends on your program if you've adopted the new version of NFPA. That's why I'm saying that take what I say with a grain of salt, but you've got to do your due diligence and find out what you have submitted to the airport and what you're committed to. I can't do because every airport's different. I found out doing this that several airports I dealt with, they were like trying to get it put in. They called me back and said, "Oh, I'm canceling this. We haven't adopted that version of NFPA 407, so we don't have to have it done according to the either the airport manager or the fire marshal." So there's a difference there in why. I just know there is, and that's why you got to make a phone call. Anybody out there that is dealing with the airport like you, make a phone call, figure it out, who your environmental company is that set your leak program up and all that stuff. Call them and ask them, have we adopted 407, the new one, since I think it's 2017 when they adopted this Scully thing. And what happened was it was supposed to be done in 2017, I believe, but nobody did it. So they extended it. And then there was no date. And now it's June 2nd, 2023, this year. So we got a lot of people scrambling to try and get this stuff. And so what I'm trying to tell you guys, everybody out here in the field, there are a crap ton of people trying to upgrade their system now. And the lead time could extend you past if you don't act now. And when I say act now, if you're required to have it, you better act now, because I'm waiting on stuff for 3-4 weeks that I ordered in January 1st. So if it extends you past the deadline, maybe you get somebody to say, okay, it's on order, it's cool. We know they're putting it in. But there are other airports that knew about this 5-6 years ago. They're like, nope, we're not giving anybody a break. So it depends on where you are, the convening authority there. You got to make some phone calls and figure stuff out, because you could get hit with fines or you get shut down. I can't comment on that. I just know that that could happen.
I don't see anything else in the chat room. Do we have any other questions from the field? All righty. Wait, Tracy and Carrie, I appreciate you guys, your time and information on 407 and the Scully system. You know, what we had to discuss with.
If anybody wants to see a copy of that and it shows the date and what is the requirement, get a hold of you. Carrie can get a hold of me and we can send it off to you. The big thing is, how do I say this? The Scully system has to be the secondary form of shutdown. Your trucks are built in with jet sensors that are primary. If they fail, that's what the Scully is for, so we don't have an overfill. It cannot be used in the primary source of filling refueler. And a lot of people got really confused about that. This is just a backup to shut everything down. So
Okay.
if anybody to you, Carrie, and then I'll call anybody that needs a little more information, and I'll provide you with the NFPA 407 regulations.
Okay, we appreciate that. Yeah, if they can reach out to us, or I can get with Carrie and yourself and get the information out that we need to our chapter and see where we go from there. Is there any other comments? Okay, well, again, we'd like to thank both of you for coming on and further explaining the Scully system, where it came about, what it was for, what it does, what it doesn't do, enforcement side of it, what could happen, could not happen. A lot of good information on that. And before we do our final farewell, we'll put in another plug for our chapter conference, which is in Oklahoma City, May 13th. And it's on the website, chapter website. You can register for it now. And any other last words? Jeff, I see that you came on. Do you have any comments or anything, sir?
I do not. Thanks for taking care of this one for us. Thanks to everybody that participated. Appreciate you guys.
All right, thank you guys. I appreciate it. And let's Carrie and Tracy, thank you very much. And Carrie, I'll give you a call after a bit.
All right, thanks, Gary.
Yes, sir.
Gary, I just want to give my email address. If anybody wants information on this, I will provide it. Can I give my email address out on this forum?
You can, or you can send it to me and then we'll push it out.
Okay, Carrie, push my email out for anybody that wants more information. And it's information. I'm not expecting you to buy anything from us. I'm trying to educate people on what they have to do before they find out they're not compliant. So you can just call me or email me for information and I'll give you everything. And you can decide what you want to do from that point forward.
Excellent. I appreciate that.
All right,
thank
Gary,
you.
send Gary my email address and yours, and he can push it out to everybody, and then we'll go from there.
That sounds good, sir. I appreciate it. Thank
All right,
all of you
thanks a
for
lot.
joining us, and we'll see you next month.
All right, guys.
Thank you.